name is Ed Markey, and I am the chairman of the Select Committee on Energy Independence and Global Warming in the United States Congress. This is my 32nd year in the United States Congress, and I think this is an issue whose time has arrived. When Speaker Pelosi took over, she said that she would create only one new committee, and that was the Select Committee on Global Warming and Energy Independence, to make it her flagship issue. And there's a good reason for that. As all of you who are here tonight acknowledged by your presence, that there is no greater threat to the planet which is being posed in the long run than this issue. And if you had said to most people which part of the American economy contributed almost 50% of all of the greenhouse gases, most people would say it's in the automotive sector. But you all know that it's as plain as the walls that we're facing, that it's the buildings within which we live and we work across the United States that produces 48% of the greenhouse gases in the United States. And that we have a responsibility to be the leaders in finding the solutions and then exporting those ideas around the world. In Boston, my home, 78% of greenhouse gases are inside the buildings of Boston. Now that creates either a huge problem or a huge opportunity, depending upon how you look at it. For my purposes, I think it's going to give us a chance to create 3 to 5 million new jobs across our country as we find the ways to ensure that we reduce dramatically the amount of greenhouse gases that we emit up into the atmosphere. And if we do that, we will be using our heads. My mother always used to say to me, Eddie, always try to work smarter, not harder. And she would always say that immediately after saying that she was going to donate my brain to Harvard Medical School as a completely unused human organ. And so you here this evening represent the people who are going to help us as a nation work smarter and not harder. To use the technologies, to use the techniques that can help us dramatically reduce our greenhouse gases. I've also had the opportunity of having the representatives from Masdar and from Greensburg, Kansas, who are both sponsors of this event, testify before my committee over the last year. But there is a lot more that we can do. I supported a measure this year which just failed narrowly in the end of the session, which would propose a model federal building code and fund the states to adopt and implement and enforce those codes. This measure would have avoided 1.5 billion tons of CO2 emissions through the year 2030, the equivalent of shutting down 30 large coal-fired electrical generating facilities spewing this coal-generated pollution up into the atmosphere, or the equivalent of taking off the road 34 million cars now and forever. That's just by adopting this uniform building code. It did not pass, but I guarantee you this law will pass in the next 2 years, because we need to have a vision for what our country can do in putting building standards on the books that can cut in half the amount of climate change creating greenhouse gases. Through this work, and through the work of the private sector individuals that are represented here tonight, when we can partner as government and private sector with the sustainable planning and architecture and real estate development that we will be creating over the next generation to create healthy, thriving communities. A green community is not a new concept. It represents an American tradition of walking to school, interacting with neighbors and local businesses. It's the industriousness of a society that wants to do more with less, so that we are, in the words of my mother, working smarter and not hard. We have an extraordinary opportunity to develop and sustain these communities through better infrastructure, transportation, and renewable energy. By doing this, we can stimulate job growth, advance science, and strengthen the built environment. We can do it. My great-great-grandfather came to this building in 1866 to get his pension check. He got off the boat from Ireland in 1857, escaping the famine at age 16, fought in the Civil War for the North, and then came here to collect his pension before he went out into the mills of Lawrence, Massachusetts, in the first industrial revolution. Well, that revolution created jobs for the Markey family. But since the Lawrence and Lowell family had invented the way to put cloth together and then to dam the Merrimack River in order to create the Industrial Revolution, that increased from 280 parts per million to 380 parts per million, the amount of CO2 up in the atmosphere, won't it be great that here at the Building Museum, we started a second industrial revolution to create the green jobs in making the buildings that we live and work in the United States no longer the creators of greenhouse gases, but now the leadership that this world will need in solving this problem of global warming and energy independence. So for me, as a Markey, and by the way, I never rose above the private first class either in the Army, it's a Markey tradition. I feel at home here, knowing that my great-grandfather had walked on these floors before me, and knowing that at this building, we are beginning another new revolution. And the people here are the revolutionaries, coming up with the new ideas, which are going to ensure that the buildings that we work in no longer pollute, but in fact are going to be used to save our planet. Thank you all so much. The green generation for what we're going to do to save lives.